Cool.
Please, bro, please.
All right. So context, anyone listening. Before we jumped on, we're supposed to be here with Madeline, who's a mutual friend of ours. And I said on the call before, I'm like, John's like, oh, let's do the call still. This stuff's going on, which I'm sure we'll get into. And then I'm like, what did I say? I'm like, oh, like let's stream. Whose platform do you want to stream on? And you're like, oh, let's do yours. I'm like, oh, can we do yours? And before we got in the call, I'm like, hey, I just want to apologize for not being more forthright there, because I knew full well I didn't want to stream my platform. So, anyways,
because I was like, yeah, cool. I'm easy either way. So like, can we use yours? And I'm like, sure.
because you know when you ask someone, like when you're really asking someone, you want them to like, oh, let's do it on mine, but you're like, oh, let's do it on mine. So it was just silly. That's all.
I
So
love
I'm
it.
sorry.
I love
I'm
it,
sorry for
man.
not being perfect.
Dude, it's okay. I see your rigidity. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. I have compassion for that.
I'm not rigid, John. What are you talking about?
So let's do a bit of trauma release. I put some yoga on. I put some yoga music on. He's like, oh yeah, that feels good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good of a Vipassana or something. Yeah?
Crouching tiger, hidden dog. You know, one move, I'm done. I'm good. I'm sorted, bro. Here we are.
Here we are, bro. This is good, man. I love this. I was ready for this. I feel like we're both going through a bit of a transition. You know what you said before on that voice message is like, wow. Then also the conversation we had a few nights ago around, not having so much stress, not having any of these health issues anymore, anything like that, and just feeling normal. You know, and normality is kind of challenging because I don't know. I'm just like, what do I do with myself now? And I've had some evolutions around that in the last 2 days. But we're both going through it, so I'd love to dig into that, man. But also let the ship be steered by a ghost or something.
Nice. by free will. Let's let it steer by free will.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Free will.
Yeah, it's great, man. Yeah, I love that. So that for the context, so I do have an email marketing campaign. Kind of, it's like a 30-day challenge for to reconnect to your instinct, self-trust, trusting yourself to connect to your instinct. And one of the people that signed up for this course, this email campaign, sent me a message this morning saying, "Hey, your email address isn't replying back to me. It's like it's saying it's bouncing." And I'm like, "Oh, that's odd." And then went to check my website, and it's my website's down. And I'm like, "What the fuck? My website's down."
The John Kai Herbert.
JohnKaiHerbert.com.au. And so I went into a mild panic. I'm like, "Okay, this is odd. Like maybe WordPress has done an automatic update, and severed the link or something." But then because the email address bounced, I was like, "Fuck, this is a domain name server thing." And I'm like, "Oh shit." And so I went to GoDaddy, who's my host provider, and it turns out John Kai Herbert's been sold. Like I've lost it at some point and it's sold. Like, so I'm like, okay, cool. This John Kai Herbert thing, all my identity that I've been tied with JohnKaiHerbert.com is now gone. Like I've got like a Google redirect to like a Google Ads sponsor thing to redirect. If anybody searches for relationship therapy in Sydney, you know, it directs to me. Dating in Sydney redirects to my website. So I'm like, in this state of panic, trying to resurrect this website, right? You get this URL back. And then I have a backup URL of something else. And I thought, I'll just transfer all of my website to that URL. And I was just in this mad panic. And I'm like, fuck, John, stop. Fucking.
This is morning, is it?
Yeah, this is this morning. This is when Cassie was ducking off to the pool, feeding Luca, and she said, "John, can you help put Luca in the car for me?" I'm like in this mad state of panic, like to have to recenter, refocus, pivot back into being a father again. And I just stopped and went back to my messages in Facebook, and there's a beautiful woman who does Gene Keys and human designs readings, and she left me a bunch of messages the other day, yesterday. And I hadn't listened to them. I saw them before I went to sleep last night. And I was like, I'm just going to have a listen to these. And she spoke to that I'm going through this shift right now of all of my messaging, what I'm here to bring. And that and that all of this relationship stuff, like the relationship world is saturated with coaches, right? Every dog on his lead is like relationship coach now, and using all the technology that we've used so far, from like avoidant attachment, blah blah blah, all this other stuff. Great. So people's relationships are getting better. Okay, that foundation is there. And then for me, even myself, I'm feeling bored with it, right? So like at the end of the day, like you can make any relationship work if you look at all the avoidant, all that stuff. You can make any relationship work. But what is missing in all of this is, well, do you actually want that relationship? Because people get stuck in the model of stay in this relationship. So leaning more towards that with helping people trust themselves and what they're here to bring, what they're here to do, and be able to walk through the world with self-trust. Like, no, I'm saying this thing. I don't care if it pisses you off. I do care and I don't care, but I'm going to speak my truth. And however that lands, that's what's appealing for me right now.
And that's what you give me, bro. That's the core message, you know. And a few months ago when we spoke about this and we spoke about relationship coach stuff, that's why I said to you, like, I think you're more than that. Yeah, it started with this image that I saw of you, and it was you when you're doing that body workshop, things with Eric or something, and you were doing with Will, and you're just doing this whole process. And whether or not you want to do that again, it's up to you. But I'm just saying, I saw an image of that, and that's when you were doing more of that stuff. And I'm like, this feels like more like you. And I had this vision in my mind. And obviously, like, I'm just here to assist, but the vision in my mind was that you're more than that, you know, and you're more than just relationships. Because here's the thing, right? In your mind, you're thinking relationships with self, relationship with other people, relationship with
money,
the world.
anything.
Yeah. But when you see that, right, people see that as like, oh, you help with intimate relationships, you know, into relationships like, I can't get a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever it is. And you're right, it is saturated. And even if it's not, it's like, I don't think it is what you do. Doesn't feel like you. And that's the biggest gift you've given me. It's like, regardless, all the good and bad parts of who you are, like when you fully own them. And I'm not saying that as like a, you know, like a feel good message. It's not feel good at all. Like it's difficult, it's tough, but you have the fortitude to do it, right? It's like, it can be a range of things, you know. If your proclivity is to be a rigid person, like the shame around that of being perfectionist, or the shame around this or that, or being selfish, or, you know, being narcissistic, or whatever it is, you know, all these things that we all naturally possess, there's this shame around it, and just owning it. And that's what you've given me, bro, like just owning it. But yeah,
thank you Luke. And when I look back down the timeline of all of my clients, that's all I would have given them. The same. It's like, just free to be yourself, whatever that looks like. And relationships tend to be the catalyst. Where it's like, I want a relationship and it's not working for me. Cool. So what's the actual issue? And a lot of it boils down to not speaking their truth in the moments when they needed to, knowing that their body told them the red flags and yellow flags and they never spoke to them. So all of these things that override their initial instinctual response to either say, you're full of shit, or I don't want to be with you, or you made a promise and you haven't kept it yet, or put some skin in the game in the commitment to the relationship. So I think there's a sub benefit from working out how to trust yourself, which is more authentic relationships. But I don't think everyone's ready to really walk through the fire of questioning their entire life, and go, cool. When you start to trust yourself, like, you might not want the job that you want anymore. You might not want to live in the state that you want to live anymore. You might not want to do whatever it is that you're doing. So there's too many pillars that they've used to reinforce themselves start to shift and move. So I think that's the crux piece. Like, are you willing to change your life? Are you willing to take the steps you're willing to do? And that can be done gently, and there'll be a nagging force inside an individual that will tell them, no, I need to change this aspect of my life.
Yeah, it's going through the fire. You know, it's walking over the hot coals, metaphorically. And like you said, like, not everyone is ready for it. and it's going to be a very rare and unique person that's going to walk through it. But when you find that person, it's going to be that person. So I hear all that, man, and like that's been your biggest gift. It's like this. It's not even the words you say. It's just the, you know, and I don't like the word energy, but let's just use it for this conversation. It's the energy you bring, which is like a reflection, a mirror of all the parts of someone that they're okay to sit with, you know. Like we started with the humorous side of me, which was like, oh, like your humor's too much, or it comes from a dark place, or whatever it is, like it's misplaced. And the truth is, it probably was, but one can't move through something without the acceptance of it, you know. And I think that's where you come in. It's this compassion and acceptance, because I think you've gone through, like, there's nothing off limits for you. There's no like you could be the worst person in the world. And you know, obviously there's practicalities to it, but like, you know, for the most part, like you're like, great, cool.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
say anything to you, and you'd be like, whatever. So, cool.
I'd sit with Hitler. I'd sit with Stalin. I'd
So
sit
would
with
I.
Genghis
Yeah.
Khan. Like, hey, tell me about your life.
But it's also that you don't have you're not afraid that you are that, if that makes sense. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
people like that are okay with that. Like myself, I'm afraid to admit that I'm okay with that, you know. And
Mm,
like I'm reading like tons of books on these kind of people at the moment. I'm really interested by it, by like how they become who they were. And it's quite fascinating because all these people, like, we create these realities of other people in our mind based on very small evidence, right? And this is probably where you're coming from as well, but very small evidence on who they are, right? I think you have like a shortcut with characterology and a few other things, technologies that you have. But reading on Hitler's bio, right? I'm 10 hours into his book out of 40 hours. It's a long story to summarize, you know, someone who's died at 50 something, their whole life into 40 hours, but still, it's a long book. And it's just like, wow, there's a reason behind this. It's so interesting. It's so fascinating to look into someone's life and to see that they are who they are, not just because of the time they were born, quite literally the time they were born. Like they were born in, so Hitler was born in 1889, and he was born into an era of, you know, where there was tension between the European colonial countries like England, France, and the Ottoman Empire or Germany, and also the things, the people he was surrounded by, and like the ideologies he was surrounded by, and then the things that were happening in the world at the time. It created a perfect, like, just, it was not a perfect, but it was just a storm, right? It was a storm of all these things that created this person. And then like the technologies that you have, like that he's a rigid psychopath and things like that, have contributed that as well. Like this cleansing, wanting to cleanse the world of its like wrongs, like anti-Bolshevism, which is the combination of the Russian and the Jews. Long story short, um, there's a reason that someone is the way they are, and I think that's what characterology gives you, right? It's like this insight to someone's soul in a way. Like, I know who you are, and you use that
totally.
tech, and you use
Yeah.
that technology on me to manipulate me.
Time and time again, Luke. Yeah,
But
time.
it's true, but it's okay.
And
Yeah.
I think when you asked me, there was a profound moment at the start of our relationship when you asked, like, it feels like you're trying to manipulate me,
Yeah.
and I think I said, yeah, I am. Like, I am. I'm using what I know to manipulate you to understand
Yeah.
yourself. But yeah, I'm doing that,
Yeah.
and I think that was a breath of fresh air for you. Of like, yeah, like he just owns it. Like, yeah, I'm doing that.
It's a turning point, right? Like you said, my injury, and it's true, and I think it's true for everyone to a degree. But it's that it's a hard time trusting people.
It
It's
is.
almost like, you know, so rigid psychopath, if that's what I am, right?
Right.
Yeah. And everyone's different, right? Everyone can go between all different ones. I understand that, but let's just use that, right? So the injury is that it's not that people will do ill things to you. It's that people won't admit to it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't care what you do. Like, it's just do whatever the fuck you want to do, but just admit it. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like this game of like, oh, like, no, I'm not doing this. Like, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm manipulating you right now. It's
Yeah.
a breath of fresh air. And that's what you
Totally.
teach as well, man. That's how I rock it now. It's like with my relationships in my life at the moment, like there's no you know, obviously it's just human nature. There is always a bit of things here and there, which I want to remove as well. But there's no hesitation for me to be a bad person.
Yeah.
Like just with the family situation before, like, you know, cutting my, and even speaking about it now, like I'm not afraid to speak about it because it is what it is. But like cutting my, not even cutting, just like cutting the ties with my sister and like that relationship, and being the bad guy. Like, so what? Like everyone's like that. It's like, stop
Yeah.
pretending like we're this good, you know, good, like clean, squeaky people. We're not. We're messy and dirty.
Yeah. I love that, Luke. Thank you. And
Mm.
I think in that transparency is where it was all the healing is at. It's like, yeah, I did this thing. Like I did this. How could you cut off your sister? How could she's your own flesh and blood? It's like, well, fuck. Like there comes a time in everybody's life where he's going to make a choice. And if something is depleting your energy, it's like, well, cool. Do I want that on me anymore? Do I want that around me
Yeah.
anymore? And they're hard conversations to have with love, right?
They
Because
are.
it's in a moment you're choosing, no, I need to love myself more right now.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
speaking from that place. And what you mentioned before about the characterology in the container of like, I understand, I can see a person. It's like, yeah, I get it. Like there's a specific injury called the masochist, called the masochist, and these tend to be people that are a bit chubbier than most.
Plump.
And plump. And what this injury, they're the most resistant to speaking therapy. So CBT, all these other things won't work on them, right? And they can be going back to therapy time and time again, Tony Robbins things time and time again, and it doesn't work because
Yeah, I
deep
saw your
down,
post yesterday.
yeah, right. It just doesn't work for them. So in that there's a 3-year-old child running the show that's always throwing a tantrum, but they might get to a point in their life where they feel, oh, I've made it, and then the sabotage kicks in, which is part of this same dynamic.
Yeah.
But there's something that you mentioned before that was perfect. It was so sweet, and I want to go back to it, and I'm shaking because it was perfect. It was about the mask of sanity.
Yeah.
So this is showing up right now. In this talk about psychopaths and Trump's going to come back around. There's all this kind of stuff that's good reappearing, and this illusion that we are not psychopaths. The illusion that we do not have this fragment of us that contributes to the underlying shadow of what it means to be a psychopath. And then the mask of sanity that we put on, which no, I'm saying, like, I'm a good person, I pay my taxes, I do this, I do all this stuff, I'm good to my siblings, I love my sister unconditionally, or whatever it is, or family, and this mask of sanity denies this lower self, this primality, which disconnects us from trusting ourselves. So we start speaking from the mask, and then we lose ourselves. We actually forget which mask that we are. We have all these other different masks, but the main one, the mask of sanity, is like, no, I'm the one that's all together. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 decades ago, admitting that you went to therapy was, there's something wrong with you. I know in my generation, like if you was like, there's nothing wrong with me, I don't need to go to therapy, you need to go to therapy. But
Yes,
now,
my dad used to say.
yeah, right. So now my dad's the same. So I don't need therapy. I need God. Okay, Dad. So in all of
How's that working out for you?
so working exactly right. So in all of that, now it's almost a kink that you go to therapy. Oh, I'll go to therapist. Who's your therapist? There's like a collection of
Yeah.
no, he's a Jewish therapist that his second, whatever it is. Like there's some credentials that come with like the therapist that you're going to. No, my therapist also worked with Seinfeld. It's like, okay, great. How's that working out for you? So in that piece, there's been this transition from how to be sane, how to appear sane, and confronting this mask that who you are at the core is an animal. Like you evolved your cells, millions of years of evolution, and as we see all of the religious folk unsubscribe and unfollow because you're older than 2,000 years. And there's a primal part of you that's evolved, which is based purely on survival. And if you can't acknowledge that, then you're going to miss the human condition of that nurture nature. Like for Hitler as example, like imagine if Hitler made it as an artist, right? When he went off to art school and actually made it, and his dad supported him in his art. Like what kind of man would he be now?
Well, it's just hard to say because I mean, first, it's a great discussion point, but I think the first thing they have to bring up is parents are one thing, but environmental factors another. And I mean environment in the sense of like the circumstances, right? So if we end up in World War III in the next 10, 15 years, they're predicting 2030. based on the military resources and whatnot. But if we do that right, and you're born 5 years ago, or maybe like say you're born 10 years ago, you're the perfect age, the military age, to then go off to fight the Taiwan Strait. You know what I mean? So my point being is that timing's everything as well. But I hear the speculation, but I wanted to bring something really important, what you said before about Trump. So there's always invisible forces that define reality, right? When it comes to the consciousness of the whole world, the consciousness of a relationship between two people, which affects everything else. But people forget something, right? They forget that um, what's worse than someone you how do I phrase this? Someone The worst thing is someone that you think you know that you don't know. The best thing is someone that you know and you know. And what I mean by that is Donald Trump is clearly flawed. He's but that's the point. He's clearly flawed. I trust him way more than I trust a script ready Obama or a script ready Joe Biden, who can't even read a script anyways, right? But the point being is that, and then this is the thing, right? So then you have this cult of people, and it's a cult, right? And I understand it. I'm not shaming it. I understand it. It's makes perfect sense of people that trust Donald Trump. Why? Because he's just saying how like obviously there's some hidden things, and he's like, oh, I'm not going to share that. But he's saying like, oh, like you're a like fat pig, or like he's saying these things to people, and it's like, oh, well, I don't have to guess. I don't have to like go into my mind and figure out who this person really is. And then you have like the in the terms of American politics, you have then the Democrats then shaming the Republicans, the strong foundation Republicans who want to follow Donald Trump. They're trying to shame them into like, how dare you follow a man so sadistic and evil? So then the same thing's happening, which is like, you're shaming me for trusting someone who shows who they really are, but you want me to pretend to be someone I'm not. To then this like you want to morally virtue signal to me on how I should be. So and it's the same thing with what's that old saying? It's like better the devil that you know than you don't know, or something like that, right? And that's what Donald Trump is to a degree. Obviously, like he can point to things where he's lied and things like that, but he doesn't try. He doesn't try to hide it. He's not trying to be like, oh, like, hello, I am Donald Trump. He's like, you're rude, you're mean, you're just like just. It's great. It's fucking entertaining as well. Like, so yeah.
Totally. Yes to all of that. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
and that's what I think, people that don't trust themselves or find that someone who speaks honestly and authentically will find him really triggering.
Oh yeah.
So someone who's like, no, you can't say that. No, you have to be compassionate. You're not allowed to judge. All these bullshit virtues that have come out of like Christianity or whatever religious doctrine that they've come from. When people don't acknowledge it, that it's come from some kind of theology,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So no, I'm agnostic. I'm atheist. Ah, yeah. Okay. So where did your value structure come from? If you're really atheist and agnostic, like where does your moral base come from?
Mm,
I think there's a question there around who are you really at the core, and then the illusion of, I mean, we're going to talk with Madeline about free will, but like this concept that we know what we're doing. And
mm,
I think until you get to a point of your instinctual nature where you go, no, this is what I need to do, even if what you need to do doesn't make sense. And so you just got to do it, right? And then you see where life leads you from that point. Instead of trying to strategize that you
mm,
know what you're doing, it also makes an individual much more resilient and anti-fragile when they know
mm,
that this is life, and life is fair and unfair, and there's things that life will present to you that you need to pivot around. And when you don't know how to pivot, when you're attached to an expectation or an outcome, you'll collapse into a depression. And if you want to put value on life, then sure, then might end up trying to kill yourself.
mm,
But once you see a larger picture that no, we're all part of this giant game of life, and it really boils down to your action in the world and how you want to perceive that action, life is very easy. Life is much easier.
mm,
So in the context of Donald Trump, like his whole life experience has been, I've done this in a podcast before, but I'll do another characterology reading for my reels and YouTube. Where his whole life has been about betrayal and avoiding betrayal and being played off his mum and his dad and looking up to his dad as someone who he saw as successful. But in all of that, there's a denial of feeling. is not,
Mm.
as soon as he started to show his feelings, I'm sure he would have been manipulated or not deprioritized from his mother.
Mm.
And that creates psychopaths, you know. I think in the world of feminism and the world of women, the most important role in a family dynamic at the beginning is the mother. And if the mother
Mm.
hasn't done her inner work, then she will occupy the emotional space for the child. And if the father can't check that process, this is talking about typical monogamous relationships, the standard family model. If the child can't check the mother's behavior in a loving way,
Mm.
then the
Mm.
child becomes warped. Like
Mm.
it becomes someone who does not know how to be with their emotions or emotionally regulate. And even with emotional regulation, there's a caveat where trying to always appear you never get triggered, or trying to appear that you're unaffected by emotion is detachment, right?
Mm.
So like either like laughing, crying, yelling, screaming, whatever it is there's a built-in emotional response there, and trying to
Mm.
regulate yourself to keep this mask of sanity on will push you into disease,
Mm.
especially in the corporate world and in subsects of femininity, feminism, where like when the man displays anger, he's being abusive.
Mm.
So, well, not necessarily. Like an anger is an indicator that a boundary has been crossed. Whether that boundary and the expectation of that boundary has been communicated in the relationship, who knows? But anger is
Mm.
an important metric for, oh, there's something wrong. Anxiety is an important metric for, oh, there's something that's wrong. All of these emotional experiences, whatever labels that we want to give the sensations in the body, are all indicators of our environment and where we need to be or where we want to be, especially with sexuality, right? Sexuality and
Mm.
desire. So I recently sent a message off to someone speaking about desire and sexuality, and you can have fantasies about somebody else in your life, and maybe you daydream about them for however long. And if you're in a relationship and you're fantasizing about another person, whether it male or female or pigeon or whatever the latest thing we're moving to, um, and then
Pigeon.
pigeon, trans speciesism. But in that, you don't need to rush off and tell your partner that you had this fantasy about this other person. It's like, no, that's your own internal emotional laundry, right? You don't need to share everything with your partner, but there might be things that you want to share, because if it's there's the anomaly of the fantasy, and then there's the pattern. So if you have a once-off moment where you're fantasizing about somebody else and then you're in a relationship, it's like, oh, that's interesting. It becomes a pattern. That's when you start creating those neural pathways where it
Mm.
creates an avenue for cheating or avenue for betraying whatever the boundaries are in the relationship. But
Mm.
in all of this, if you're trying to keep the mask of insanity on, mask of insanity, that's a good one. The mask of
Mm.
sanity on, you'll end up with a disease, or end up in talking to a therapist that has very little knowledge of the human body and the characterology of what's required of the human condition, and will try and put
Mm.
you on medication. They'll try and persuade you to use like some acceptance therapy or some other thing to make you conform to your
Mm.
environment, when it's actually you're in the wrong place. You're not
Mm.
supposed to do whatever you're doing right now. So that's the balance that I'm seeing right now. And when I think I'm going business wise,
Mm.
is how much of your universe and your perception of the universe and your role in it are you willing to question? Because if you're having these reoccurring themes in your life where you hate your work, you don't get stuck in shitty relationships, you hate the government, you think
Mhm.
you can change the government by voting in somebody else new, or getting rid of capitalism and installing socialism, or jumping on whatever the next bandwagon of ism is going to actually help your
Mm.
circumstance. You're delusional, and you actually need help to trust yourself.
So what I'm hearing, there's a few things. The first thing is that the source of all pain comes from an injury to one's instincts, which occurs through one not trusting themselves, which comes from wounds and scars and those kind of things. So is that what you're saying? You're
Yeah.
saying that Yeah, so that the crux of our problems in the world are individualistic in their first
Mhm.
sense, and they come from the injury of an instinct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great
and
summary.
instinct is intuition, right?
Yeah. I think instinct is a form of intuition. Yeah, there's something else that's in there,
Mm.
bro. And I
Yeah.
haven't got.
Can I share something?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So my problem with intuition is that it's not the word itself. I love the word itself, and I love the practicality of it, and I think it's great. It's what people who use the word often attribute to
Yeah.
intuition, and that is that intuition singularly is the right thing to do at all
Yep.
times. Now, what I mean by that is like, if I listen to my intuition tells me I got to leave this call like right this second, like right now, boom, go, and that's my intuition says to do. It's like, sure, follow your intuition, but don't assume because you follow your intuition that it's always going to be the right or the best thing for you. That's my issue with it. It's this automatic bias that I follow my intuition equals the perfect outcome in life. It's like, A, you can't measure that because there's not two of you, and B, to assume that would be to assume that intuition by itself is the single most important thing in this world. Now, for example, right, me, like I started meditating in 2012, initially, right? And I started doing it because someone on a pickup video told me that the more present I am, the more chicks that I can get.
Yep.
When I was 18 years old, they told me that. So I started meditating, and I fucking hated it. I hated meditating. I didn't like it. There's no part of it that I enjoyed, right? And it got to a point where it started to make me panic meditation. And it's good to delve into this now because I haven't thought about this in a long time. It started to make me panic meditation. I remember 2015 after doing it, like the willpower, like do it the right way. And I'm going somewhere with this. And I think you know where
Yeah.
I'm going. But I was meditating for the 3 years up to 2015, and I started to like having breathing problems. I couldn't breathe properly. So I went and saw a physiologist, a physiotherapist, and he was also a specialist in breathing before breathwork was even a thing. And he did like put a like little sack on my belly, and I started to like just breathe into my belly and like breathe really gently, to activate. I think it's carbon dioxide in the bloodstream, which then calms the central nervous system down. And anyways, long story short, I then learned how to breathe properly. From there, I was fine. But I've just come to realize now, and this is the work that I've done with you as well. It's like I refuse to do something that I don't want to do. Right. I genuinely refuse to do something I don't want to do. Right. Now, and here's the thing, it's so nuanced that I can't explain to people or even to anyone like what that really is. But I'll try to now. Right. So I don't want to meditate anymore. I don't like meditating. Right. And I just don't want to do it. Like I like, Luke, you should meditate in the morning, 20 minutes in the morning. It's like, no, I'm not doing it. I want to work instead. I want to work. I want to wake up. I want to go see sunrise. I feel right about that. And I want to work. And maybe I wake up and I want to meditate. I'm just going to do that then. And it's that freedom of what I want to do, right? So in my rigidity, someone telling me, someone who was an idealized external version of who I wanted to be, telling me you ought to meditate to get X outcome. And then all these science papers, all these things saying you need to meditate, you need to do this, you need to do this. Meditation is the best thing ever. Like then I create an identity around, oh, I meditate. I've been meditating for 10 years since 2012. Blah, blah. Then lo and behold, I've then created this in spiritual terms, ego outside of me, but in characterology terms, this mask, or whatever you want to call it, outside of me, which is meditation. When the truth is, I don't need that right now. And in fact, it's done its purpose now. I don't rely as a clutch, as a crutch. I'm just here as I am right now. Um, so yeah, I think that's a huge thing, right? I know I was going with that, but I think the main two things is that just because intuition is what you ought to do doesn't mean that it's going to lead you to the best outcomes. It just means it's going to feel good in your body.
Mm.
And obviously there are things in life, better quality of life, etc., etc. An example of not listening to one's intuition can also be something that is perceived as positive for the world, but not for you. Meditation, ice baths, saunas, those kind of things. Cellularly, they might be the best thing for you. But I think the body knows best for the most part.
Yeah. Thank you,
Mm,
Luke. Yeah. I think the body does know best, for the most part. And
mm.
depending on how much trauma that you've addressed, you have a
That's
deeper
huge.
connection to that wisdom.
I just want to add to that quickly what you said there,
Please.
right? So in and whether or not one agrees with him or not, in Bezo van der Volk or Dolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, he talks about and this is just a segue in my opinion to the real core answer. Um, being not traumatized is communicating clearly, right? So it's not that I'm not talking about communication just with other people, like, hey, John, I feel X way right now, and I'm really pissed off that you did this.
Yeah.
Or it's like, I fucking hate you. Fuck you for
Yeah.
doing this. You piece of shit. That's communicating clearly as well, right?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, you're full of fucking shit. What are you saying? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
that's communicating very
You
clearly. Yeah.
It's like, fuck you. You fucking hurt me there. You piece of shit. Fuck you. Like, and that's communicating clearly because that's clear. That's high fidelity communication.
Mm.
Now, if it's low energy, if it's like low vibration energy, what do you want to call it? Doesn't matter. It's clear.
Yeah.
And I think that most people would, if they want to admit it deep down, they want clarity on that. It's the first thing, right? But it's also communicating clearly with oneself. Like you said, relationship is external and internal. It's like, I don't want to do this. Okay, do I need to do this? Like then, okay, and this is the part as well. It's like you feel the intuitive thought, but your systems are balanced enough that you're able to balance out your critical thinking, your mind, your logic with your emotional needs. So if I sit here, I'm like, I don't want to meditate. I'm like, okay, let's assess that for a second. Should I be meditating? Well, why should I be meditating? What's the benefits? What's the downsides? What would I do instead? What is that thing that I got from meditation I would like to get from meditation? Should I be doing it in the first place? That's critical thinking, right? And then you have to realize when the threshold is for those two parts. It's like it's such a rigid thing to say. It's like a well-oiled machine, or it's like stepping into nature and understanding that this rational mind has just as much utility as your intuition, as your body, as your heart, as your soul, and that this intuition is purely the door opening. The rest is on you.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. The rest is
You
totally
wouldn't get it.
totally though, right? Like it's I, I do see like intuition just being used as a bypass. So I was intuition. It's intuition.
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
I think that there's calling someone into their bullshit is also a gift. Of like when someone says, "Oh, it's my intuition," willing to be challenged on that, because when I'm messaging people, I sometimes I come across someone who is a healer. They tend to be healers, which are the most resistant to being interrogated by their
Challenged.
reality.
Oh yeah.
So now I'm perfect. Now I've got this qualification. I'm perfect. I'm good. Like I'm a healer. I'm all this. And then
Drop into your heart,
what's
John.
that?
Drop into
Jump
your
into
heart,
your heart.
brother.
Jump into your heart. Yeah, feel it. Feel it. No, I trust my intuition. Yeah, but when you look at their Facebook feed, it's full of drama. It's full of recurring patterns. I look at their body shape, and like you're not someone who is healthy. You're not someone who's
But
operating.
just
Yeah, go on.
you're just in the nature of keeping it objective. Like you can look at their life and see that they have, and this is just for me, right? You can see they have drama going on in their life, as in like the externalities show they got drama. They're like struggling with money. They're struggling with all these different things, right? And that's fine. But don't say intuition's giving you the right answers when your life doesn't show that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think there's a denial that you were at cause of your life.
Yeah. Yes, that's precisely it. It's like the source, God, or whatever is the main determiner of my life. It's like if you really believe that, if you really believe there was a God, you believe that He gave you the God-given right to choose your own destiny.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
And when
So
you were mentioning before about like the intuition, the critical thinking piece. So a lot of the work
yeah.
that I do, like I'll listen to someone's story and I'll make my own internal flag points, metric points of their story. And then I'll weave that like a constellation, like a whole bunch of stars in their story. That one needs to join up with that one, that one, that one. And I build together a map of their story to how that relates to what they're actually speaking to. And it's very
Mm,
easy to detect the bullshit when someone starts telling me their story. And
mm.
if I listen for long enough, they sometimes hear it in themselves. Oh, fuck, I've been telling you the same story over and over again. I'm sick of saying this story. Great, cool. Would you like to sort this out? Right. Because when you have the same witness who's holding a critical space, interrogating space, which is what I do, they can't help but question themselves. They can't help but be self-witnessed in the process of working with me. And there's an injury that doesn't see this. And as if we have a we call him an acquaintance, but he's in the similar community, where they just tell the same story over and 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 over again, right? And that injury, that oral injury in characterology, will stop someone from reflecting on their story. And you need to be authentically communicating to stop this person from speaking. I say, shut up. Effectively, it's a shut up or talk over them with more authority. So, how I got to go? I've got 5 minutes. I've got 5 minutes. What do you got?
Yeah.
And otherwise, they will keep you captive for hours to telling the same story over and over again. But the critical thinking piece, I'll double back to that, is they're all faculties of the human condition. So we don't live in a primal state anymore where we're hunting buffalo every day. We don't need to smell the air and imagine that a lion's shit like downwind, and we need to be wary of that. We don't have the requirement for those anymore, that ability anymore. But what we do have, we need to be able to use our logic to navigate the world, our critical thinking to navigate the world. So if you want to run your own business, it's like, cool, I need to have cash flow. I need to be able to diversify my investments or whatever. I need to go find clients, right? I need to be able to design package structures. So that doesn't naturally come to the instinct or the intuition, but the intuition can steer you into the next direction. But you need to be quiet
Yeah,
enough
yeah.
to listen to it and go, fuck, I just need to have a conversation with John. Fuck, I just need to go and do this. I actually need to go for a walk right now. I need to stop and go have a look at a sunset. That's what the intuition and the instinct will tell you. So to use it as the defining compass of your life is ignorant, right? And it's unique to each individual. So being able to discover that takes time. It means that if you listen to it and it gets you in trouble, is the trouble a lesson or a repeat of what you've always been doing? So like for me,
Yeah,
sometimes
nice.
I will, a good example of this is I reached out to a woman maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, and did a characterology reading and sent her the video in her messenger. And she got hugely triggered by it, which is fine. And then she attempted to publicly shame me on her Facebook wall, like, oh, this guy came into
Nice.
my comments and this predator, this thing. And I was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I get it. Totally. I'll own all that. But my intuition, my instinct said, go do that, And I think this ties back in with actually Gene Key 31, I think speaks to this, where at some point your arrogance becomes who you are. And arrogance, if you remove the morality from arrogance, it's a level of confidence where it's unquestionable. And in that process, you will accept a role of leadership that you are willing to be the bad guy. You're willing to be you're willing to step so powerfully into the world. If someone says, "Oh, you're a predator," me too. You own it all because you are conscious of your decision making process. You listen to the thing that guides you there. So there's something
Who's an example of that?
of guiding there, of listening to himself.
No. Someone who just fucking owns that. Who's just like, it could be a public figure, it could be anyone. Like, just an example of someone,
Yeah,
if
like
any.
if we could interview Hitler or some of the like those kind of people, like they'd swear blind. No, I was doing the right thing, right?
Yeah, of
Um,
course. Yeah.
um,
No, they
and
did,
they did.
and there's a reason behind
Totally,
it.
totally, bro. So the weight of their life experience and also the people that reinforce their opinions also feed that dynamic as well. So if we talk to Hitler, like the way I see him energetically in a larger umbrella of things, is that he was speaking to something that all of his people were unwilling to speak to when he first started, right? So it's like the first snowflake that triggers the avalanche. And then as that got bigger, more and more people started to pack snow onto this snowball, right? And that's the
I
story.
gotta
Tell me.
I got I gotta add to that. Yeah. So in his journey up, like, to becoming the chancellor in 1933, he wasn't someone that he didn't think of these ideas. His ideas weren't original.
Right.
Like, so for example, like him expanding into the eastern part of Russia, that was by someone else. Someone else that did, like, the Germany needs more land. We need to. So his goal originally was in 19, I think it was 22, to team up with England or to team up with Russia, take over France and to take over the east of Russia. If it was going to be England and Germany, and the reason for that is because someone had wrote in a book that he was reading that the Germans needed more land to breed the Aryan race,
Right.
right? And so he believed that Bolshevism, which was the it's like the socialist version or communist version, I should say, rather, of Russia. So the Tsar in, I think, 1917 or 1916 lost power, and then who was it? It was what's his name? Marxism. What's his name? Lenin or Leninism, whatever it's called. So they came into power, and then he saw the fusion of the state with the Jews, and then he made that a thing that. So his goal was, we need more land in Russia in the east, and we also need to get rid of these Jews, and we also need to remove Bolshevism, which was his competing, like, I guess you could say, political party in a way. It's hard to explain. It's so complex. But long story short, he didn't just wake up one day. He's not an evil person. This is the thing, right? This is the hard thing. He's like, oh, how dare you say that, Luke? But okay, so define what evil is first and foremost. So for me, what evil is it is literally the DSM-5 definition of a psychopath, right? If you want to use anything as evil, it's that. And what is a psychopath? Can anyone tell me what a psychopath is? What it specifically is when they don't have the mirror neurons for empathy in their brain. They genetically don't have it, or they're predisposed to not have it, and then they have a lifestyle or a life, again, that's still relating to someone had an upbringing that then triggered that, and then they're switched off, right? So okay, I want you to imagine, like, you're someone and you're 20, was it 20, let me just forget the numbers. You're 25, 27, 25, 27, and your country goes to war, and you're told that your country goes to war because another country is trying to take away your rights, and things like that. Like, someone came to Australia right now and they tried, and the Australian government said, like, if we don't invade New Zealand right now, they're going to try and take over the rest of Australia, and they're going to make us live as this, that, the other. And that's been going on for like 20, 30 years, right? And you spend 4 years in the front line watching, like, everyone around you die. Like, I think it was 40 million people died in World War One, right? So then how can you not be someone who has their emotions turned off, right? So all these things happen, right? And they led to who he is, right? So there's a reason behind why he wasn't born that way. Like, he wasn't. He loved his mother. Like, he had his photo of his mother in his bunker before he died. That's how much he was in love with his mum. So he wasn't devoid of empathy and love. He loved, like, Germany, like, but the experiences he had in his life led to that. And I think that's relevant, because everyone has their own story as well. There's a reason why everyone is the way they are. And I think, again, like, coming full circle before, characterology gives you an insight and gives you a shortcut into those reasonings.
Yeah, it does. And I
Yeah.
love you spoke to all that, bro. Especially what really stood out to me, bro, was he loved his mother.
Oh, big time.
And in that, like, in that dynamic of when people speak to, oh, we're all one, we're all love, we're all this, except for Hitler, except for Stalin, except for Genghis Khan. No,
Yeah.
we are all of this same machine. We are
We
all
are.
part of this whole mechanism, and it really boils down to the individual's actions that create where we go next. Doesn't matter how much you want to pray for salvation. The world is created through action and inaction. So
Yeah.
people that are indifferent, and indifference is a big one, bro.
Mm.
And indifference is a prime indicator of an instinct injury, where someone just doesn't want to swing an opinion either way. Oh, it's too hard. I don't know who I'm going to vote for. Oh, politics doesn't work. Okay, but who are you going to hedge your bets on? Who are you going to
That's what we
actually
call a
do?
sheep, right?
Yeah, sheep,
Mm.
effectively. And in the indifference piece, you can feel like, oh, I don't care because I'm bigger than it, or I don't care because it doesn't make any difference. It's fucking indifference. And indifference is worse. If in Dante's Inferno, I think he spoke to the worst. there's a special place reserved in hell for people who are indifferent.
Mm. Wow.
And that way of being is like a kind of hybrid mask of sanity, where if you
Mhm.
surround yourself with enough indifferent people who like medicate themselves with alcohol or TV or whatever it is, there's this consensus, an unspoken consensus that they have no efficacy or ability to enact change in the world. And then they become victims of the circumstance. They could become victims of somebody else who is willing to do that,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Someone who inspires them, someone who puts the structures in place, the people who are successful, the billionaires who make an effort, right? And then you got the people that, no, pay me more because I deserve to be paid more. No, you don't. I mean, it'd be great if everyone, because if the cost of, if everybody, I mean, income, your income is what's the term? When your income matches the how you want to live, then the quality of life goes up, and there's more social cohesion. There's more families are better off. Families you can actually get the help that you need, dental care, blah 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 blah, blah all that kind of stuff. But if you're instinct injured and you have an injury that relates to entitlement, you're not going to really want to contribute to the world. You want somebody else, you want to put somebody else in the firing line of making the world change. So for a politician, for example, it's very easy to throw stones and tomatoes and things at a politician, but they've taken the time and energy to get there, and it's an effort. Like it's a it's you to get to that point, to want to do that takes a level of commitment to want to
Mm.
keep doing it, to stay in that world.
Mm.
And for someone who's on the outside who continuously criticizes and doesn't have their skin in the game, like you're just wearing a mask of insanity and you're the psychopath. Like you're the one
Mm.
that thinks that you're normal. You're not. You're
Mm.
crazy. You're a
Mm.
lunatic. You're
Mm.
indifferent to the world. How could you not be passionate about something? Oh, I don't want to make a fuss if I'm too passionate. It's like, then what are you doing here? Like, what are you doing
Mm.
here?
Mm. Mm. I think you're speaking to there's a quote by Alan Watts. He says, "What I call a real swinging human being is a human being that lives in two worlds. They know that they're everything. They know that they're all that the world is and everything, like they're the cosmos, the divine consciousness, but they also know that outside them that they are material. You know, they want to go to the heartbreak, but deep down they're behind that, like look at this, like this is just crazy, right? This is life, like the chaos, the getting involved in the community, like going crazy and passionate over things. You know you're that part of yourself, but you're also something deeper, which is that you are the aperture through which the whole world looks at itself. Like you're everything around you, right? And I think that's what you're speaking to there. And what I wonder though is that um, does characterology and the technologies that you use make you biased?
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what
yeah.
can happen is, um, like it's a tool like anything else, bro. And what can
Mm,
happen is if somebody has done a significant amount of inner work, the inner might not show as much on the outer. And this
mm,
is why I needed to leave the mentorship that I was in, because there was an obsession that your body couldn't change. Like so the everything was revolving around my characterology. So you get trapped. It's like anything that you apply a system to.
yeah, yeah.
Like when you get diagnosed with depression, like, cool, I'm depressed for the rest of my life, apparently now. So with characterology, when I apply that template to you of like, no, a rigid psychopath, it's like, cool, oh, now I'm a rigid psychopath for the rest of my life. It's like, no. So being able to use it in the context of a clinical situation is very helpful, which is why when I did the Conor McGregor analysis, I said, I don't know. Like I'm just looking
Mm,
at what I see and making comparisons. I'd actually need to talk to the guy and have a conversation to see if what I'm seeing is relative. The bias um, comes from my interrogation of the person. So for me, it would be I'll look at them and I have pinpoints about where I think their significant childhood injuries are, and then I will ask questions to either confirm or deny if my assumption based on the characterology is correct.
Is there a way to weather characterology against the storms of bias by making it more scientific?
Yeah, look, there's something called 360. It's like a body program. Like you I
Hmm.
can't remember what it was called. Very interesting correlations with characterology and the science behind characterology, and particularly with your workout styles and leadership styles.
Right.
Otherwise, science. Well, I don't think we have the technology yet, Luke, to be able
Mm,
to get to the nitty gritty of what's really there. Being able to identify what your combination of fear,
well, you,
serotonin, dopamine, all that kind of stuff, like what at a scientific level, at a biological level. Otherwise, we're still playing around with the soft sciences like psychology. Um,
yeah, we could measure like one's ratios in proportion to their body shape, and then you could cross-reference that with like their emotional regulation, like so serotonin in the system, dopamine, that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff out there,
No,
but I
you're
think that's
right.
the way to
You're
do it.
right. So in all of that, there's still another level of granularity, which I think we haven't got the technology for just yet, which might be
Mm,
down to measuring the pheromones in the breath, down to what's coming through in the skin,
mm,
down to what your sexual arousal is. I mean, the devices to measure sexual arousal work really well for men, not so good for women. Um,
mm. I
so
want to ask something like just
yeah,
on that as well. Like, what is it that so in your opinion, for when I hear something that's not backed up by some level of analysis, meaning like there's not some kind of, and science can be one thing. I'm just using science as the only tool that I know of that's going to give you that. When I hear stuff like that, I'm like, let I won't be able to trust it until it's fully backed by something. Like it's clean. Like there's been a peer reviewed study or whatever it is. What is that in people that find it hard to believe things that are not of this world to a degree?
yeah, that's a great question, Luke. Um, So what I see is it's someone who's afraid to step into the unknown.
Yep.
They have to have something that has already been done before and proven before they can step into it.
Mm,
Um, and I think that's a I see that it's easy to go from that way of being to the other way than from someone who's had no concept of critical thinking to becoming a critical thinker. So I think like if you were to install a program into a child or someone, you'd start with critical thinking
yeah,
and
yeah.
then allow them to to take that apart until a point where they felt the most counterbalancing between the two.
Hmm.
But it's an anxiety, Luke. It's basically an anxiety of what they need to know. I think it starts
Mm,
in childhood where a child is allowed to do whatever they want to do, and then a parent might say, "You can't do that because of this. You can't do that because of this. Don't do that because of this." Right? Or prove it to me. And with an emotional, in an emotional sense or a feeling sense, a parent might say, "You're not allowed to be sad because the kid next door is sadder than you." Right? Or eat your dinner because if you don't eat your dinner, don't you know that there's millions of kids worldwide that don't eat their dinners? They'd be thrilled to have a broccoli feast or whatever it was. So in that intellectualization and trying to manipulate, again, it's a psychopath again, trying to manipulate your child to be obedient or not get hurt or not allow your child to get hurt because you don't want to feel the guilt or responsibility of them getting hurt,
mm,
right? You'll manipulate someone to rely on their intellect, which puts them in a framework when they're going to school. Okay, if it's not in a book, I can't trust it.
mm. I hear that.
Good. You feel complete, bro?
Yeah, man. I just wanted to ask, what's I could feel you reading my body language.
Yeah.
Because I can see you watching very attentively. Um, what is next for you? What is the thing? So this
Yeah.
is we started this call because of the shift, but I wanted to give you a chance to share.
Yeah, what is next for me? What's next for me, bro? Is
You have to hold it close like
actually
this.
this is how the pros do it. Yeah, it's like it's how the pros do it.
Well, what's next for you,
What's
John
next?
Kai Herbert? No longer John Kai Herbert
A,
because you've been kicked off that domain.
ASMR. What am I doing next? Which is interesting, bro. Like trauma release. Because like I'm gonna take on Cassie's last name. So for me, that's a journey for me. Yeah,
Really?
I'm gonna take on Cassie's last name.
Why?
Oh, because I want to. I just get a yes to do it. My intuition told me. No, I get a yes to get so when I feel into it, I'm like, yeah, you know what? This is my last name. I don't really feel a real legacy to that one. But I do feel one to her last name, Wallace. So
I feel that as well, actually.
that's right. Or you confirm my bias. It must be right. Then in how to make friends with people really fast. Just confirm their bias.
Exactly. And let's look at the science of that as well. Of changing your last name. Does it lead to a legacy?
Yeah, I don't know. Good question. I don't know. It might.
Okay, I'm joking.
But it's right though, right? Let's bring in some critical thinking and dial in some humor. I think it's perfect. What's next for me,
Done.
bro, is iterating my offerings. So,
Mm.
like, I see relationships are an incredible crucible for growth because it brings up all of your shit, all of it. It doesn't matter how much inner work that you think you've done on your own, how many ayahuascas, how many vipassanas, how many rage releases you've done, how many massages you've got by yourself. When you get in a relationship, all of your stuff comes up again. So there's a solid component there about me helping people in relationships because it's something that I'm really passionate about. I think the next piece for me, it might relate to honesty, transparency, and sexuality, and encouraging people to be with their sexual fantasies, and being able to trust themselves that what they're feeling is they are not insane. This is part of the human condition. Like people that fantasizing or having dreams of like annihilating the planet or something. I think the dreamscape is something that people have been ignoring, and it is a brilliant compass to helping somebody unpack their unconscious world. If 95% of what we operate from on average is unconscious, like that's where all of your instinctual nature is. Like if we speak to the context of free will, it's like 95% of you doesn't even know it's there. And then I had this epiphany the other day where even the mirror reflection of us isn't accurate. Like we've never really
Mm.
seen ourselves. Like a
Mm.
mirror is not who we are. So
Mm.
this illusion that we can see ourselves from doing inner work by ourselves is pure delusion. Like you really need a community or somebody else to guide you through this whole process of
Mm.
self-actualization and helping you remember who you are before all the childhood injuries and the societal programming. And so where I'm going next is somewhere new. I'm excited of where I'm going next. And like I'm here to serve, bro, and make money.
Mm.
And I think that's and in that making money piece, it's I want to invest in new world technology. I want to invest in where we go next as a civilization, including investing in people that I
Yeah.
believe in, like you, bro. Like I'll fucking invest in you, like until the cows come
Thanks,
home.
mate.
I'll keep on doing it. It's like I see where you're going. I see what you're creating. I see how you influence people and influence like the world at large. So I'm like, cool,
Mm.
you. I want you on my team. I'm going to keep investing in you. So finding more people like that who aren't indifferent, who are passionate about something, haven't just
Mm.
resigned to be okay, cool, marriage, like marriage, kids, mortgage, retirement, go on a holiday to Bali every year. There's something more to life than just doing that rinse and repeat pattern over and over again. It starts with our relationships, and where are we out of integrity,
Mm. Can I add something to that?
dude? Yes.
How are we going to bridge the gap between what is known and the unknown? Because you're using language there that speaks to what I know and what I know because I've worked with you and because I'm very worldly, like I look at a lot of things.
Mm.
But for someone who is, and I hear what you're saying, the target market is people who are wanting to make a difference, right? Wanting to do something huge in the world. Whether it's business, it could be like an Elon Musk or like a Russell Branson. I'm giving some examples off the top of my head. They're obviously passionate about something, right? But I think the common issue is, in my own eyes, is that the technologies you're using are very out of this world.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is people who are wanting to achieve tangibly are often disconnected from things that are separate to that. So I just wonder, is there a marketing way you're going to put this to make it more appealing to someone who isn't spiritual in traditional terms?
Yeah, and it would be triggering them into what's out of integrity in their life. So through the impact of, hey, you want to go through a fourth divorce? Hey,
Mm,
you want to keep finding partners that cheat on you? It's
mm.
bringing. Hey, you want to keep doing those lines of coke on the toilet seat after the session, whatever it is that you're doing, like speaking
Mm.
to their reality.
I mean, more a punchline, like, so for example, like someone might human excellence specialist, or like,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know. I haven't got one. Ask ChatGPT to make this happen.
your second partner,
My second partner. Yeah.
or your first partner, I should say.
Yeah, or my first. Yeah, you could say my first AI, my first AI thing. But yeah, so I think in that, bro, right now I know I can push and create something, and that was the old John with his website, everything else. That was the old way of being. I can push, bro. Like I can intellectually get an idea in my head and push like a motherfucker. Stay up till like
Nice.
12 o'clock at night, grinding away at trying to make this vision work, and ignoring all of these red flags for myself. That John, you haven't eaten, your feet are numb. This is wrong. You haven't, like, all these things, and assuming that I'm
That's so
so
unhealthy.
unhealthy. So I'm allowing this one to percolate, and
Yeah.
trusting that by just keep on doing my reach out, talking to people that are already in my DMs, and creating content when I know I need to create content, that it all works. And
Mm,
that's me walking my talk of trusting myself. Like I know the next thing. Like even this call today, bro. When Madeline sent us, oh my god, I can't make the call today. Cool, I could do one with you, Luke. And
yeah,
then
yeah.
this
Okay.
has happened. So um, all of that's me trusting myself, and I know it takes me wherever I need to go.
Is there any way I can support besides how I already am?
Dude,
And we can talk off air about this if you want to,
no,
or I
dude,
don't mind.
bro, like I guess the support from you, bro, is always doing what you're doing. Like you being a product of my product is you supporting me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's it. You keep on grinding your way into more of trusting yourself.
Mm,
Is how you support me, because that'll just emanate off you of like, who the fuck is this? How's Luke so confident? How can Luke just
mm,
like do that to his family? And like, how can Luke just go and like, that is
hmm.
how you can help me.
Be an example.
Be an example, bro. Be an example.
See you like a deity. Like I. It's like, is this the
Prodigal.
right thing? Is this the right thing, God? Am I living your image?
Yeah, and it's that. It is that. I think that's hilarious. It is exactly that.
Maybe you could be like the Jesus maker.
That's
You want to be crucified in 30 years? Come see me.
That's right. Do you want to have your sexual escapades never communicated to the world? Yeah, totally, bro. I think, or you just want to copy a story from Osiris, whatever.
Oh,
Um,
we're going deep now.
Going deep now, but yeah, bro. Like I think there's a piece there about me helping people, and then they become my supporters, because there's so much credibility in how you speak, Luke. And
Mm,
some of the other people that I've spoken to, like the credibility just comes through in your voice. I was like, cool. I don't get how this thing has actually worked, and the science behind it was lost when Wilhelm Reich's papers were burnt, and
burnt by who?
the American government.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
you don't know about this?
No.
Okay, cool.
You don't know about this. Can't believe it.
Yeah, so Wilhelm Reich created a device that effectively could cure cancer. It was called an orgone
Oh,
box,
right. I think I've heard about this.
and it worked for a bit. You know, people had it installed in their houses, and it was really good. But what was missing, some of his science wasn't great. And what happened was he moved to America because he was going to be persecuted in Germany.
What?
And
When was he born?
I think he was
I'm gonna
born
share. I'm
in,
gonna share my screen.
yeah, yeah. Let me pull it up. Um,
Oh no. Oh right. So he was in 1897. Yeah, he was right in the middle of all the crap in the world happening.
yeah, totally.
Jeez, he was right in the middle of it.
I'm
That's
pretty
like the
sure.
worst. If I was going to choose any year to be born, that would be the worst year to be born, in my opinion.
Great.
You know, because 1914 is the war, so you're 17 years old, so you're perfect age to go to World War One, and then you had World War Two, and then you've got a bunch of other wars after that around this period, Korean War, yeah, etc., etc. So
Yeah, and I think he actually wrote a book about Hitler. Um,
he looks like a rigid psychopath.
he is. I'd say more. He's more
My homie,
masochistic. He's more masochistic, but a schizoid. Like he was very ungrounded. A very ungrounded man,
right, right.
um, which is why um, when Alexander Lowen came on board to help him create more of the characterology stuff, Alexander Lowen grounded all of his technology and like made it more sound.
Yeah,
Alexander
well,
Lowen's got incredible books on depression, fear, and have that all in the body. So with
this is so
Reich,
fascinating.
he went on a very much an energy tangent, and he's got all kinds of crazy therapy that some people stand by. And but what happened? Alexander Lowen could see that these magical boxes that Reich made didn't work for a long after a certain period. Like
Hmm.
there was actually a fundamental. You needed to sort the body out. You couldn't just put the body in like a healing container and
This
assume
thing.
that thing. Yeah, totally. And by assuming by putting that
Sorry,
person.
bro. Can I just add to this? This looks so funny. Like not because it's a box and someone's in it, but just the blend of all the different elements here. Like this, okay, this chicken here, right? She's dressed like someone in the 1920s or 30s, like the style of the 1930s.
Yeah.
And then you got him in a lab coat and like this fucking metal box thing. That's hilarious. Like look at all different like just different dimensions of reality, like technology and then antiquity, like modernity, antiquity, and all
Totally.
these
And
books here.
it's like a book's holding the door open.
Yeah, it's like what? What the fuck is going on? Like this is like a I don't know. It's like if an AI was like create me an image with a contradiction between classical liberal woman in 1920 and an attempt at technology in some weird box shape. This would come up. This is what comes up. Sorry, I just had to say that. That's hilarious.
No, this is perfect. It's hilarious. And it is weird, right? And so what happened was Reich had all these notes, and he came to America, and he was challenging the pharmaceutical model.
Look at
And
this.
yeah, listen,
That's
listen. I think "Listen, Little Man" was the book about Hitler.
so. Isn't that? Look at this. The book's repeating. Is that not weird to you? Boom, boom,
I
boom.
think I think he just grabbed a whole
Oh,
bunch of books.
yeah, he's got two of them. Oh, because it's his book. That's why. Oh, wow. So I was trying to create a conspiracy there. Sorry, I keep interrupting. It's just really
No,
interesting.
no, it's
This kind of
great.
stuff.
Go there, Luke. Take it there. Um, so what happened was people would go into these boxes, and but then Alexander Lowen could see that these boxes weren't working in the long term. So you really need to sort the issue out at the fundamental physiological stage, like what
Mm,
is in the person's environment or emotional environment that's stopping them from being healthy.
mm.
But in that, Reich challenged the FDA. The FDA
Oh, wow.
um, wanted Reich to like publish papers or show up in court or something, and he didn't want to. He was like, "Why am I? I came to America to be free, and here I am being persecuted again."
Interesting.
So he ended up being arrested, and then his books got burnt by the FDA.
No, you're kidding me.
I
Really?
shit you not, bro. Check it out. There's actually a documentary on Reich. He's one of the only like the FDA burnt his results.
Why?
Because he had something. Well, actually, I don't know, bro. Maybe he had something, maybe he didn't. I guess we'll never know. But there's something in that. Even just the FDA wanting to burning his documents means there was something else at play that was that no one wanted to see.
Why he's linked to Einstein in a weird way.
And Jung as well. Jung, Einstein.
Wow, this guy's in the center of things. Arrest by the FBI.
Yeah.
This is really interesting. Wow.
Oh, his cloud
chasing.
his cloudbuster technology is really fascinating too. Like he basically make a rain making machine.
He looks really sad and really like just bitter here.
Yeah, bro. If that's in his arrest document, yeah,
That makes sense.
He came from Germany to escape the war, Austria, right?
Mm.
To escape the war, and gets to America and gets arrested for like being a free man. Just doing something that he wanted to do. I think it blew his mind, and he became deeply depressed about the state of the world, where he thought America was the free country.
As you would, man.
As you would. And
there was some people in World War II who, and I'm reading a book on World War II at the moment, they moved from Germany to Poland, and then Germany invaded Poland, then moved from Poland to like Holland, then Germany invaded Holland. Then some of them just killed themselves. They're just like, well, so they were convinced that Hitler was taking over the world. So they're like, well, fuck, what's the point? Every country I go to is going to just move here. I can't keep upending my life. This is just the end.
Can't keep upending my life, bro. In my life experience, like I moved houses in over a 3-year period, like about 18 times.
So as well,
that experience really shifts your perspective of life.
I think I've moved like 30 times in my life.
Yeah, right. Wow.
All
right, bro.
Yeah, nice, cool.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. Mad love, man. I really appreciate this conversation. If you just trusting that your intuition to jump onto the call, and also you just jumping onto the web there and like just pulling up the website. I think I really enjoy that. Like searching on the podcast on a live. Yeah.
Do more streams, bro. Do like a 3-hour stream and just dive in. It's good fun.
I dig it.
Yeah.
All right, bro. Going to end this stream. Mad love to everybody that watched this. Thank you so much. And if you liked it, comment, share, bookmark it.
Don't do it.
Criticize it.
Dislike it. Leave. Go away.
Report it.
You all.
Report it for hate speech.
Spam it.
Spam it. Good times.